Well, so it's a little jokey joke because that's also their initials. So,
What
they answered their own
what is the
question.
meaning?
So what a DB is like, huh, what a douchebag, but it's also
Oh,
his initials.
that
So
from the AIM generation? I was not part of that.
I don't know. I don't know. I'll let them speak for themselves. But yeah, it's also looks like a piece of
That's what
anatomy.
I would. Okay, that's what I was like. Is it supposed to be?
Stop.
Is it supposed to be like,
What a dick.
dick and balls? That's
That's
clever.
okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's actually that. Yeah, when he said that, that's what I thought he was referencing as well.
oh, that's great. Which piece? Oh.
Oh, all it needs is a little hat.
Well, also Dick and Balls, DB.
Yes, yeah.
The layers. We have
There's
layers.
layers.
It's a 4D fucking screen name. Let's go. Love that. Um, yeah, okay. So we've talked about some ways that we can potentially do something to help men to prevent that and maybe do something to reverse some of the effects of this manosphere culture.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. So I'm pulling up. I'm gonna pull up another Darwinism, which is by actually the same author as the previous one, which is really interesting.
Oh, good.
Um, but it's about like these. Sorry, I'll drop the link.
This is worldwide research too. They're researchers from France, the UK, Australia. I love that. Um, Also, we're not falling for it. What a DB. We do have interest in fantasy dragons of the scaled and winged variety, and I shan't be going any further than that. So
Is that?
it's a D's nuts joke,
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, yeah,
and we're not biting.
yeah.
So the innuendo that we could go with, I tried to pick my words carefully,
Yeah.
and yet I still in the end.
That's the word dragon.
Well, no, I also said we're not biting. So I don't know.
I'm
Like
screaming. Maybe we are because you're pro castration, Alicia.
that's not the method I would choose, to be fair. Like, I'm pressed.
Anyways, so like one of the things that these groups do is that they obviously try to like pigeonhole males and females, and say that
Mm,
this is like their evolutionary blah 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 blah. But there's sort of this article is essentially trying to like debunk that and say that like
right,
no, that's actually not true at all.
right.
Um,
Well, I guess the thing with
yeah.
evolution is it's very hard to prove the evolutionary, like, adaptive truth, in anyone's lifetimes. Even if you could live 6 lifetimes, you might not be able to prove
Yeah,
that with
exactly.
to
I
have
mean,
something like
yeah, because I
that
mean,
happen,
well,
right?
we're referencing when we're talking about like evolution, we're talking about like early Homo sapiens or even Neanderthals, right? And we're saying what the like what are they do? What did they do? That's like too long ago.
Yeah, you wanna know who I wanna model my life after is, like, guy with club. That's people some
Yes.
people have Michael Jordan, some people, Celine Dion, me, man with club,
Yeah.
Fred Flintstone up on my wall, aspirations.
Average lifespan 25 years. Like,
Average lifespan, you dead.
you're dead.
You basic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think okay, so we've got a solid half hour or so left.
Yeah.
So there's like a
So
decent amount of time to cover other stuff.
yeah,
Keep
I
going.
think so. The three things that I really focused on in this was like the three main sort of like research subjects that I was interested in was like sort of this like misuse and misappropriation of like Darwinian
Yeah.
like evolutionary psychology, right? Which a lot of Darwinism stuff is like people will be like it's survival of the fittest and it's like no, it's survival of like the best at adapting, right? Like it's misused and mislabeled.
That and also the least weak. It doesn't mean if you survived, you're one of the strongest. It just means you weren't one of the easiest to pick off.
Yes,
Like, it's
yeah.
not all surviving members of species are apex predators. Like, that's just simply
Yeah.
not true, right?
Yes, but I mean like actual Darwinism evolutionary is about like your ability to adapt, right? It wasn't about being
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
buffest in the gym or like whatever. It was about like how are you
Right.
adapting with culture? And if we're going to really look at the loneliness epidemic, you want to look at it from an evolutionary perspective, like if you're not procreating, it's because you're not adapting, king. Like get with the
Right.
times.
Absolutely. Fail to take accountability
Yes.
for your own like, if you can't get your dick wet, whose fault? It's not the women's fault. It's certainly not the women's fault. Be better. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, be better.
Adapt.
Like,
Adapt. And so
well,
there's
and this is why they fucking believe that 80% of women are interested in 20% of men. I'm like, 20% is generous, folks.
20%. That's really funny. Yeah, so it's like this misappropriation of Darwinism, sort of like the loneliness epidemic itself, right? Like, what are the structural
Mhm.
pieces at play right now? Obviously, there's a lot of it's like politically relevant, highly controversial, and then also the aspects of like what what is actually like what are healthy gender or healthy relationship dynamics, right? Because this sort of manosphere
Right.
thing is that the man is supposed to lead the household and the woman is supposed to stay home, and this the man can have multiple partners for whatever reason. That's kind of like a random extra thing. And I still don't know. I'm like,
Yeah.
polyamory is socially acceptable these days, guys. You can do that if you want to do that.
Yeah, you're allowed to just do it. It doesn't
But it's
have to be
but it's
it's not that deep.
it's trying to they're trying to make it a flex, right? Because they're trying to say, oh, women don't want to have other partners and they don't want to have polyamory. So it's just me. I'm just so yeah. I mean, I'm really referencing the one thing that we saw in the
Yeah,
through documentary, but
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And so like I did try to find sort of like what were healthy gender dynamics. Pretty much the summary for both of the all three studies I was able to find were like it's really complex and it's super context dependent. And I was like,
I'm
okay,
so glad that the academic circles peer reviewed that
yeah, I
and
know,
that
right?
came
I
to
was like
that conclusion, like,
super helpful.
great.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Thoughts? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess any healthy relationship dynamic, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
gender, to me boils down to communication and, um, trust. Right?
Yeah.
And to some degree, I guess honesty, is related to trust, though I don't think that that's necessarily, like, all out tell the person everything because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that can be burdensome, right? And trauma dumping is something that can be detrimental to a, relationship or, a dynamic. But I think, like, what makes our friendship healthy kinda thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's something where, like, when we still lived in the same city, it would be like, we're supposed to hang out. Dude, I am so not in the zone. All I
Mm-hmm.
want to do is stare at a wall and space out to Netflix right now, so
Yeah.
can we reschedule? And not just, "Oh my god, something came up." Like, we both know individuals that are like
Yes.
that, and we're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, please, like, just tell it to me straight," kinda thing. And, a little bit of that kind of divulging, idea sharing, I think that's clearly
Mm-hmm.
a large basis of our friendship, respectful disagreement, and within that idea sharing and collaboration, I think is something that might not be as obvious for a lot of other kind of relationships, but when you think about, like, a partnership, like a romantic partnership, if
Mm-hmm.
you are truly, like, building a life with someone, then you're collaborating on your household. You're collaborating maybe on parenting or pet rearing or, any of those sorts of things. You think about work, a lot of work is collaborative. And the most kind of healthy versions of those things that I have encountered have all been ones that were based on generous interpretations of things, understanding, communication, and, a fair exchange back and forth between people and respectful, when disagreements occur, I think.
Yeah. I think so, and I think like equality and respect, right? Equity of respect is really important.
Yes,
Um,
yeah. That's
one
a
of
really good point.
one of the articles. So again, like 2 to 3 articles I found were like, oh, it's like, it's very
Yeah, it's a
complex and it's
complex.
context dependent, beep bop boop. But one of them that I found, which I think definitely plays back into this male loneliness epidemic, is that, and I will drop the link right now.
Mm,
And I will share my
we love
screens.
links.
Um, in that it essentially is that this, I believe this was a meta-analysis, multi-dimensional
Mhm.
inventory, but um,
The
it
marital inventory enrich. I
yeah,
like it when you name inventories catchy acronyms. That's my favorite.
yeah. So and it was having women and men rate their marriages based on like aspects of communication, conflict resolution, sexual intimacy, financial management, parenting, and emotional connection. And that men and women rate their marriages differently. And how long ago was this study conducted? This is from
1991.
1991, right?
Oh, girl.
Women, so what is that, 30 years ago? Well, 20,
Mm.
oh,
Almost 40,
oh
girl.
my god, that was 36 years ago. Holy shit. Um,
Yeah.
that women were more likely to have lower scores of happiness and satisfaction with their relationships, right? So
Mhm.
I think the result, if they want to blame women, you can blame women un poquito because 36 years later, women are saying, yeah, I mean, if women are not happy, if I'm not going to be happy in this relationship, why the fuck am I entering it? And now because we have
Right.
independence, because we're not being forced into servitude
Yeah, because the sexual contract
to
is
be
no longer valid.
to receive food, to receive, like shelter and clothes, that and you
Mhm.
can do that, you can just work a job, which I guess is another form of servitude, but like capitalism, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you they're saying, why am I going to make my life less happy than if I would be single, essentially, right? And
Yeah.
so
Well,
women
lots
aren't.
of the reports of happiness from current data
Yeah.
state that women that are single are frequently reporting being happier than women in
Yes,
relationships.
exactly.
Not unilaterally, but
Yeah.
much more frequently than previously. So as this male loneliness epidemic rises, women are getting happier, and correlation not causation, but certainly I believe related, right? And not necessarily because men are bad TM,
Mm-hmm.
but because women are no longer obligated, kind
Yes.
of thing. And that in and of itself, sometimes just taking advantage of the fact that you don't have to and then circling back to the fact that you want to but of your own volition
Yes.
has a very different flavor. It's very like Harry Potter or whatever. It's the difference between choosing to walk to your own death and being chased down to your death. You die at the end either way, but walking in with your head held high of your own choice versus being dragged kicking and screaming are two very different flavors
you
of
you
ways to get there.
you likening marriage to somebody dying is really funny, but anyways, no, I would get what you're saying, and
I
I
was going Harry Potter
yes,
there,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, sorry. I
But
listen, I'm new on board with the marriage thing. That's a recent development for me. I love the idea of marrying my partner that
yeah,
I have now, but any other partner in my previous life, that would have been death.
yeah,
I
yeah.
would have preferred death.
Okay, okay. The drama. No,
But you don't have to make that choice. You can just not date the person. That's what I chose. So like it's not all that dramatic. It's just yeah,
yeah.
I don't
I
want to live that life.
yeah, I think it's like part of the reason that like people be like, oh, women's standards are too high. Like, actually, I feel like people are saying that
Too
less.
high.
I feel like they'll say that to individual women, but they won't say that collectively. And it's like, I mean, are the standards too high, or is the bar in hell? And I think
Ah!
because we're seeing this regression back, like, if more and more men are being indoctrinated with like, women are supposed to serve me, women are like, I'm a human being too, I'm not gonna do that, so you
Yeah,
can
I
go fuck
recently
yourself.
got data to suggest that I should be treated like a human
Yes.
being, so I'm gonna go ahead and roll with that. Like if being with a man according to the new sexual contract, which
Hmm.
Susan Sontag believes is just kind of a new flavored version of it where we have to accept 70 cents on every dollar and that's part of our sexual contract now with the patriarchy and the opposite sex. insofar as it is binary. I don't know, I